Every day, gym owners open up their ad dashboard and see green arrows, rising graphs, and impressive ROAS. Platform says it's working, metrics look beautiful, but there's one problem. They're still broke. Their bills are piling up, their staff is underpaid, their business is stuck. Something usually just doesn't add up, and it's not just their bank accounts, it's the system. Today, I sit down with one of the most respected individuals in advertising measurement, Jeff Greenfield. He's not just another marketing guru. Jeff's a serial entrepreneur, pioneer in advanced media attribution, and the CEO of Probalytics, a company that's redefining the way we track what really works in a world without cookies, pixels, or reliable dashboards. From his roots as a chiropractor, operating and building his first business from scratch, to helping major media giants like Fox, NBC, and Pepsi finally measure their marketing ROI the right way. Jeff has seen behind the curtain, and he's here to blow the lid off of everything you thought you knew about advertising. You've ever wondered why your ad seems to be looking good, but it doesn't resonate in your bank account? Or you're stuck in the trap of chasing clicks instead of building true awareness? This episode might just change the way that you do business forever. This is Sweat Success, and this is the truth about your marketing. Let's get into it. All right, Jeff, thanks for joining us. I want to get right into it. And one thing that I keep hearing from a lot of gym owners is they'll say things like, my ads are performing well. We're seeing great results. They're looking at all the metrics, within their Google or their Facebook ads. And they think that things are going well from the metric that they're seeing, but they are still broke, right? And they're still stressed and they're not seeing the money come into their bank account like they're expecting. Why does the story in their dashboard that they see not necessarily match the bank account?
Yeah, great question, Michael. And thanks for having me here today. That's been kind of that quandary that all marketers have had for years. As a famous marketer, back many years ago by the name of John Wanamaker. And he had this statement, half the money I spend in advertising is wasted. The only problem is I don't know which half. So I'm putting this out there so that gym owners know that when you feel this way, this is something that has plagued marketers, large and small, since the beginning of advertising. But it's incredibly difficult today because of the way that we're measuring and determining what's working and what's not working. And let me give you an example. The default thing that people are using to measure is Google Analytics, primarily because it works and it's free. And today it's GA4. So let's assume that you've got a couple of campaigns going. You've got a campaign in Google going so that when someone types in your name of the gym, they're able to find you easily. And then you've also got a campaign going on Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, because that's where the people you want to target are actually at. So let's say someone goes along and they're scrolling through their Facebook feed and they see an ad that you have that maybe is like, it's a video, but they don't watch it. They kind of scroll over it, but they notice it. Now you don't know that they notice it, but they notice it. And then a couple hours later, they're on Instagram and they scroll by and they see the video again, but now they actually watch it and they make a mental note in their head. They say, yeah, I need to go check that place out. I'm going to go sign up for their special this weekend. And then the weekend rolls by and they kind of forget. And then it's like Sunday afternoon and they're like, oh, wait a second. I just remembered I want to check out that gym. And they open up their phone, they Google the name because they remember the name and they click on the ad and then they sign up. Now translate that, multiply that by like a couple hundred times over the month. And what you end up seeing in your report at the end of the month is that Google is killing it. Because you got all of these new customers come in through Google and you look in there and Meta is not doing anything. Now Meta will tell you they're doing great, but you're looking at GA4. So what do you do if you're smart and you're data driven? You're going to get rid of your Meta and you're going to spend more money with Google. And the problem with that is because of the example that we went through, we know that it's the ad that you ran in Facebook and Instagram that built the awareness. So the person knew to even search for you. So now just imagine you're not just spending in those places. Imagine you're also spending on connected television. Imagine you have a billboard that's up, that's digital. You're even sending direct mail. You can see now how complicated and difficult this gets. But this problem is it translates across every single business and any marketer that's spending any dollars on paid media where you don't know what to do. And the real problem is that if we go back through history, before there was digital marketing, all we had was TV, radio, print, and direct mail. That was it. And these were campaigns that weren't easy to set up. It took a long time. They were real expensive, and there were no clicks. There was nothing to measure. You just had to buy it and kind of, if you ran like a coupon in the newspaper, you just kind of had to count coupons and wait till like the end of the month or maybe 2 months, and you keep a tally at your front desk to see which coupon is bringing people in, essentially. So it was a different type of world. And the big brands like the BMWs and the Cokes and the Pepsis of the world, they would use these statistical marketing techniques. One is called marketing mix modeling. And they would look at how many eyeballs they were looking to buy, essentially. Now, what happened is that the same problems that you have as a gym owner with having to tally this all up. Imagine you're like a marketer at like a huge gym franchise, and before digital, it's like, how do you even prove what you're doing is actually working? And then digital comes out, and all of a sudden you can do an ad buy, and at the end of the month, you can count clicks. So now you can actually prove that you got something for what you paid for. And that led to this whole thing. So now fast forward to today, we have a whole generation of marketers who believe that the job of marketing is that you invest your marketing dollars to buy clicks, and clicks lead to signups, and signups lead to sales. And that's how you make more money as a gym owner. But the reality is the way marketing and advertising works is you invest dollars to buy eyeballs. The job of those eyeballs is to build awareness. And when awareness is built enough, people will walk into your gym. And if you have a good landing page, then that will translate into clicks. And then that leads to signups, and that leads to more money. Mm-hmm. So looking at those clicks, we're missing the actual top part of what marketing is doing.
What's going away in this, or what is changing? Because we have this whole cookieless environment that is kind of evolving into like, cookies aren't going to exist anymore. The tags or the tracking mechanism that is used to identify, to your point earlier about Instagram and Facebook, I saw those things, right? But I didn't necessarily click on it. Once somebody gets tagged on something, then we think that same system, Google or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whoever we're using that digital method from, is going to tag us, trail us, right, and keep watching us, and then maybe serve us up again another ad when the time is right. What is changing because of all these adjustments with Apple and Google? Like they have policies that are changing now.
Yeah. So, and it all started right around COVID. And in fact, even before COVID, it actually started in Europe. They came out with this kind of privacy policy that started this whole privacy movement that essentially said, we all know that when you're emailing like all your members, there's an unsubscribe thing down there. You have to have that by law. If someone wants to get off your list, they have to be able to get off the list. Well, in Europe, they came out with something called GDPR that essentially said, guess what? You don't have a list anymore. You have to build your lists, and you have to ask for permission for people to join your lists. It's like, whoa, totally different way of doing things. And so when COVID came around and more people were doing everything online, Apple came out with this iOS update called this App Tracking Transparency Update. And essentially, we all you went one day into your phone and you clicked on Facebook or Instagram, and it said, do you want to allow this app to track you across? Yeah. And everyone said, no.
Oh, right.
And the reality is that prior to that, they were able to track us without permission. And so what Apple did is they said, listen, we operate all around the world. We're going to put our system in compliance with Europe so it's easier for us to operate. And so all of a sudden, Facebook and Meta were blind to everything else that was going on in the mobile environment, caused huge problems for them. And then also around this time, the way that people use the internet changed. It used to be that the entire internet and all of the advertising ecosystem was based upon people visiting websites, because that's where people spent their time, was websites. Well, now people spent their time in apps, and apps are kind of like their own little world, if you think about it. And in the advertising world, we call them walled gardens because they're great on the inside. Like Facebook is great when you get in there, but to an advertiser, you can't get information out. And the information that we used to be able to get out is we would know as an advertiser when you actually just scroll past one of our ads. So I would know that you did scroll past my ad for my gym. Even without clicking on it, I would know that. So I could track when you eventually signed up. I could go all the way back to the first ad you saw and then use an algorithm to figure out what's really working well. So with all of these updates and with the people changing the way that they use the web, the walls came up. So when you think about walled gardens, we're talking Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Snap, Amazon, Walmart, all of these environments. So now most of the places where people spend their time, when you're running ads there, you only know when someone clicked to come to your website. Mm-hmm. So you're blinded to that awareness part of the funnel, which is massive. So now we only know that lower part, and that does benefit publishers like Google, the people that are selling the clicks. Essentially, it works for them because since we're blind, I can only count the clicks. Well, if I'm using Google Analytics, I can only count the clicks, but there's other ways around this, even for someone who's running a very small campaign to kind of DIY it, if you will, to figure out what's actually working.
So how would that be? And before, let me back up for a second.
Okay.
As we were talking about GDPR and how these things have affected policy and privacy for people. And one of the other things that had come out a few years ago was the requirement for calling. We used to have a lot of robo-dialers, and people could just dial whoever they wanted or text whoever they wanted. So now there's policy around that to prevent a lot of spam. And in the fitness world, a lot of times people will gather data, right? They have, mounds of data of customers that they've gathered over the years. And now it's hard for them to reach out to these customers. They might get flagged for sending too many text messages at once or blocked from having done that. Same thing on the email side. So if all these things are kind of coming into play, and you have to get everybody's approval to send them a text message or give them a call or message them through these apps, or even the information on the apps, I shouldn't say apps, the channels, is coming to you, and you're monitoring the metrics that's behind it on their dashboards that they're giving you, right? Because they have control of those dashboards that they're giving you. What of this is even true? So that way you can make informed decisions. And then the second thing is, how do we move forward to do something in the marketing space to actually get people's attention so they want to join your gym or they want to join your fitness facility? How do you kind of navigate that? Is it back to the billboards and back to the mailers and back to the newspapers and the TV? What's the plan?
Yeah, well, you bring up some great points. I think to the first thing in terms of, can you believe these metrics? I think it's important for everyone listening to remember that most of these ads and platforms that you're using are publicly traded companies. And, I've been in this space for a very long time. And what we see happen a couple of times a year is these algorithms in terms of how they're doing things shifts, usually to benefit them. And in fact, one of the big things that's come out both on Google and Meta are these AI campaigns. And they say, listen, you don't even have to worry about it. Just give us your budget and we will find your customers for you.
And we'll make sure we spend your money, whatever your budget was, we'll spend it all.
Oh yeah. And they will. And I've got some very large clients that, against my better judgment, decided to test this out, and it didn't work out for them. And the reason is because as a publicly traded company, imagine there's a way to win a customer. And one way will end up costing us, the advertiser, $7, and the other way is going to cost us $7.50. Well, as a publicly traded company, you have a fiduciary duty to go the $7.50 route. So your interests are not aligned with theirs whatsoever. But you bring up, so that's the first thing is you should always question their numbers without a doubt. And you should always have a kind of a triangulation approach, if you will, in terms of looking at your metrics. You never want to trust one source. You want to go at least 2 or 3 different ways and try to bring them together. And sometimes you have to cross your eyes to be able to look at it to make sense of it. But the most important thing is you're asking this big question, which is how do we, as like a gym owner, build awareness? And that's the same question that large brands have. That was the same question that I had. I started my business career as a chiropractor, with a single practice. How do you get attention from people? And the best way long-term to get attention is you have to do something different. You have to do something that gets people talking. That's a little bit buzzworthy. I'll tell you that when I was back in practice, I had a very kind of simple technique that I did. Every week, I would print up thousands of business cards. On one side was my address, and it had a card that said, this card entitles you to a free spinal exam to get someone in the office. And on the backside were quotes, inspirational quotes. Okay. Now, if you don't think quotes are a big deal, just search for them in Google. You'll see there's thousands of websites devoted to quotes. Most of Pinterest is quotes. Half the memes that are out there are quotes. People love to be inspired. And every week I would hand out to every one of my patients 4 cards with the quotes on them. And I would tell my patients, keep one for yourself, give 3 away to people. And I did that for probably about 9 months. And then every store I walked into in town, at the bank, at the supermarket, I would see my cards taped up with the quotes there. And that's something that, but the key is anyone listening can take that and do it. It's easy to scale because you could print up a card that says, come and take a free class. Card entitled you take a free class or have a free session, that type of thing. Of course, then you have to design like a tour around it as well. But whatever you do, don't expect it. 'Cause remember, the job of this is to build awareness. Where I see most business owners fail is they start something different to build awareness, and then they expect that it's going to work in a week or 2. And they stop. And it's like the person who's mining for gold and they quit and it's literally 2 inches ahead. They only had to go on for 5 more minutes. You have to do something like this and be consistent and expect it's going to take months and months. It could take a year, depending upon what town you're in, how much competition there is. But find something that's meaningful to you as the owner, that means something to you and your family, that you think your members will like, and do it consistently. And then that will get people talking. That word of mouth is the absolute positively the best form of advertising. And then you could use, if you start getting some traction with it, then start doing the paid stuff on top of it. And then who knows, maybe take videos of people talking about the cool thing that you're doing and start putting that on YouTube or TikTok or wherever, depending upon the age of the demographic that you're trying to go after. The key is if you're looking for folks in their 20s and 30s, those folks are on TikTok. You're not going to find them on Instagram or Facebook. Anybody over the age of 35 in the US, you need to be on Meta. And that either means advertising or you need to have content for them. You know, my wife is a great example of that. When we go to look for a restaurant, I Google it. She looks it up in Facebook. If they don't have if their hours are not accurate in Facebook and their last post has not been in the last week or two, she's like, I don't want to go there. So that's the key, is your content. You always have to have that content machine moving. And if you do that and it's consistent, that's the key, is consistency. But that's how you build awareness.
So back to the question about the metrics with Google and Facebook or Meta. What is it that these platforms aren't telling us? Like what part of it are we missing, right? What are gym owners or fitness businesses or businesses in general, what are they not getting out of it?
Well, what they're not getting out of it is that eyeball equation. That's what they're not getting out of it. And I know this because number one, that's how the platforms work, but also every gym owner and every marketer has a Google sheet sitting on their desktop right now. And it's got every sign up. It's got any advertising they did for that day, how much they spent. It's got how much it cost per click and the cost per sign up. Mm-hmm. And in order to get that data, you had to download it. Like you went into Google and you downloaded your ads. You went into Meta and you did a report. And chances are when you downloaded that report, there is a column it's not called eyeballs, but you got rid of it because you didn't know what it was, or it just seemed like it was BS to you. And you've been so hyper focused on the clicks because that's the only thing that's real. So the column is called impressions, and it essentially is how many ads were actually shown, and it stands for like media impressions. And again, going back before digital, that's what all of these big brands used, were media impressions. And so what I recommend is go back over the last 12 months, repull your reports daily. And what you want is you want a spreadsheet that's got date. The next column should be impressions because that's the top of your funnel. And then clicks, and then cost, and then all your metrics, signups, all of those things. And then create a graph and look at your impressions every single day for the last year. And then create another graph for clicks. And you could correlate them if you're good enough, or you can overlay them and do 2 indexes, or you can just put them side by side. And what you're going to notice is the days where your impressions were higher, there's probably not an uptick in clicks to your website because that's awareness building. And then you'll notice maybe a couple of days later or a week later, you'll notice that there's an uptick in clicks because there's that time frame. So what you want to do is you want to study it for a while and understand, what kind of delay am I seeing when my impressions go up? Is it 3 days? Is it 5 days? Is it 15 days? Some of our clients, depending upon the brand, it can be 30 days. It can take a while for awareness to build. Also depends on the type of campaign as well, too. And then what you want to do is then you're going to look at clicks and you're going to look at signups. And when you start to find a pattern, you're going to go back to that particular day or time frame when those impressions were up. And then you want to dissect that day and say, what was running that day? What was I doing that day that was different that I wasn't doing the other days? And it's real simple. Do more of that. I mean, that's really, but don't do it because of the clicks, because the clicks will lead you in the wrong direction. You need to go backwards and start with those impressions. That's how you want to kind of steer the ship, if you will.
So many advertisers and marketers, they focus purely on ROAS.
Right.
They say, yeah, all we got to look at is how much you're bringing in based on your ad spend. So if you spend $1, let's hope that it's more than that, right? How true is that?
ROAS is an interesting metric because when you look at straight ROAS, you're looking at essentially all the revenue that came in and all the money that you spent. Okay. And what you could do is you could separate it and you could say new customer ROAS. So it's like, how much money did I spend and how many new customer revenue came in? Mm-hmm. But what you're missing out on is the real question, which is how many of those signups would you have had if you hadn't done any advertising? Meaning, how many people are going to come in from word of mouth? How many people are just going to sign up automatically? And then the same thing is true as well, is that you've got essentially a subscription that's going on. Some people are going to churn. That's a natural thing that happens. But the question is, what percentage of the people are staying because of the gym itself? What percentage are staying because of advertising? So when you're really looking at, for a gym, you really, your main metric you want to look at is, I would think, is your cost of acquisition, what we would call your CAC, cost of acquisition of a customer. That's really the focus. It's more of like a CPA type metric versus a ROAS. Because your continuity, we have some customers that run continuity and for them, because we've done a real detailed analysis, that continuity, that subscription business is highly dependent on the marketing messages that are out there. But in the case of a gym, I would be solely focused on CAC because essentially, yeah, you're a gym, but you're really running a new customer machine. That's from a marketing perspective, you have to be solely focused on new customers. And you have another team that's focused on keeping the existing customers happy and satisfied, essentially.
So when you're thinking through that, you mentioned something. How did they get there, right? Would they have come to your gym and signed up had they not seen the ad, or had it not been part of your ad spend? I shouldn't say see the ad because maybe that's not where they found it. How do you confirm that when a customer does come through the door and you ask them the question, so where did you find us, or how did you hear about us, right? That's a common question that they'll ask, and then they'll fill out the information. Is there a strong likelihood that there is a correlation of the information they're providing you, or is it possible that that customer saw you so many times on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, they just got bombarded with these visual cues, and then finally on that like 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th time, because they've seen you enough, that they got a piece of mail and they thought to themselves, well, I was thinking about this for so long, and now that I have this, it must be a sign, right? They sent this to me and it's a sign. I got to go in. So then when they come into the door, they say, oh yeah, I saw you from the mailer. Which one is true, right? Where do you spend your money now? To your point earlier, right? How do you determine that? And if you're a gym or any business, is there a time where you just don't spend on any advertising just to kind of clean the air and go, all right, we're just going to take a break and see what happens, and then we're going to get back into some marketing efforts, paid marketing?
So there's been a big rise in this concept. They call it zero party data, which is, and you've probably seen it, you go to buy something on a website, and then after you buy, on the thank you page, it asks, how did you hear about us? Mm-hmm. And those statements are about as reliable as a witness with a police lineup. You know, human beings, because remember the job, people tend to forget that marketing and advertising, it's not about bombarding people with benefits and price and stuff like that. There is this unconscious emotional component to advertising that tends to get overlooked, that people don't even notice whatsoever. So it's relying on statements from people. They're going to end up telling you the last thing that push them over the edge. And that's not where you want to spend your money. You want to spend it at the first thing that built the awareness that even made them even think of you. And you're really asking the question which is what all marketers want to know, which is this question of incrementality, which is, I want to know what customers would I've had, which customers is this particular ad responsible for? And if it wasn't for this particular ad, I would have not gotten those customers. And that, unfortunately, is a serious math question. Now, especially for like a solo gym and stuff like that, if you're in a couple of geos or a couple of different areas, or if you're a national chain, you can actually test it. The way you would do it is that you would pick one location, like in Dayton, Ohio, we're going to run TV ads. We're not running TV anywhere else. So we can compare. We're going to run, everything else is going to be the same. The only difference is TV ads in Dayton. And if all of a sudden we start to see signups and visits to the website and walk-ins start to go up like crazy, well, then we know, there's something to this TV. This is incremental. This is the increase that we're seeing from these particular ads. Otherwise, you need a platform that uses AI and machine learning, similar to the one that we use for our larger advertisers. I think, though, going to your question, do you need to like turn off advertising? No, I think you always need to be out there. And again, I'll go back to the consistency thing. Being at a gym is not a high consideration item. It's not a high purchase, but a lot of people consider a gym to be part of their community. And it becomes part of their daily life. It becomes very important to them. And so when someone is in the consideration set of leaving one gym and going to another, there's a lot of emotion that's involved. And in order for them to do that, once you're in that consideration set, they're going to be checking in on things. And that's where that content and the consistency of your having that always on advertising is there. You can get very sophisticated with it, set up like these top of the funnel campaigns where you're prospecting people, retargeting campaigns for people that have visited your website, and keep people in those funnels, if you will, for an extended period of time. Give people time to feel comfortable. And I would just say, don't forget about that emotional component of it. Cause that is incredibly important. Just think, it's important for people to feel that they're going to a place where they feel like they're part of the family. And that's a tough move because it's almost like going through a divorce, switching gyms. It's a tough thing for a lot of people to do.
I think a lot of, at least in the gym space, I've seen this a lot. The gym owners are so focused on driving more revenue, driving more members, and just getting people. It's all transactional. At a certain point, they kind of forget why they may have started it, because now it's a business and they have to pay bills, and they just go for the money, right? So they're always running these transactional ads or campaigns. And to your point, I think it's kind of they're getting too far away from maybe the reason why they had such a strong conviction about starting that business in the first place, right? Supporting people and helping people and building this community. That they get into a point where they're simply just throwing stuff out there and hoping something sticks and going, well, one of these ads with this promo is going to work. And I think that gets lost. So is there kind of like some kind of flow that you would recommend on, like, don't always be just running ads for a promotion? Maybe to your point of earlier, like awareness, like you got to get eyeballs on you. So what's that flow? Or can you just like quickly break that down? What could they do today to make sure that they're doing the right things?
Yeah, I would start with those top of the funnel ads, meaning when you're prospecting and you're looking for new customers, especially on Meta is great for that. I would start with ads that are not talking about benefits, that are not talking about price or specials, that are essentially what I would get is I would do video testimonials for members where I would just go up to them and ask them to talk in the iPhone about why they love it here, what they love about it. And what I would try to do is I would get people of different age demographics, and different groups of people that you're targeting that you see there. You always know your your clicks that are there. I would go to each one of them and get some videos and ask them for permission. And I would put up, I'd put your logo on it, and have like a little emotional note in there. This is what being a member of our family is all about. So that would be number one. And then once someone visits the website, then I would have an ad. I would switch those ads to be like, hey, we're running a member special, a new member special. So that now someone's already shown some interest. They're in the consideration set, but I would also still have a mixture of some more secondary messages. So don't necessarily repeat the first ones, but maybe have some of the same people talking a little bit more deeply about it, but run those with specials. And that would be kind of a mid-funnel campaign. And then after someone's in that for I would give them 45 to 60 days and they haven't yet converted or come in or anything. Then I would drive them harder with some sort of even newer special ad, where they even get more of a discount type of thing. That's how I would do it.
I like that. Now I know you got to go here. So, I wish we had more time. I'll have to have you back on.
You too. It'd be my pleasure.
Yeah. We spent all our time at the beginning of the show talking. Yeah. For anybody who's looking for some support or some help, I know most of your focus is really, at least for your business, is kind of on the larger business side, and we do have some of those groups that we work with. So, where can they find you? How can they find out about you? Because you have a wonderful company that really supports a lot of this and understanding those metrics. Where can they get a hold of you, Jeff?
They can go to provalytics.com. Or even easier, it's just get Prova. Prova is an Italian word that means proof, because we're all about proving that advertising works. So that's GETPROVA.com. And I'll just give a little shout out. We actually have on our insights section, we have this little course that we put together. There's no cost. It says attribution certification. Attribution is the whole idea behind measurement. And one of the hardest things as a business owner is, if you've done any type of digital advertising, things are constantly changing. So everyone always asks, how do you know what's coming next? And it's I've been doing this for so long, but I found that if you study history, you start to see these cycles. And so what this course does is it tells you about the past, kind of the present, and what we see as the future of measurement and advertising. And then there's takes about an hour and a half. There's a quiz and you pass it, you get a certificate for LinkedIn, which probably won't mean much for your listeners. But I think for some of you, you'd probably get a lot out of the course because it would help you start to understand how we got to where we are and why sometimes things feel like they're so messed up and stuff like that. But it's right up there on the inside section. And like I said, there's no cost.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. I know that you've got more appointments coming up today, so I want to make sure that you have time to get to those. And everyone else that's listening, all the information is going to be in the show notes, and obviously the links, so that way you can reach out to Jeff or you can reach out to his company. And my kids always say this, sharing is caring. So if this episode resonates with you or you feel like it resonates with someone else, make sure you share it so that way the knowledge transfer is there and we can pass things forward. Jeff, thanks so much for being on.
Oh, my pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care.